Hello and welcome to Zero Camp's Warmachine Mark IV Army Spotlight and Overview series. Today we will be looking at the Orgoth Sea Raiders. These are your 80s death metal Vikings that would fit nicely on the cover of an Iron Maiden album. The Sea Raiders are a quality combined arms army with a focus towards the melee side of things. They have the power to stay on the table long after they should have died and keep going. One of their best abilities is the power to be reactive and to adapt to whatever your opponent throws at you. So let's start off by looking at the three starting casters of the Sea Raiders. First, we have Harus, the Thousand Wraths. Harus has the stat line of a warjack and a giant high-power sword to go with it. His feat is amazing for whatever models you put on the table. His arcane stat is a solid 7 and allows him to use Fate Blessed practically whenever he wants. He is a melee-focused caster that can reach out over a quarter of the way across the board to kill whatever he lands on. When building with Harus, look to build more infantry heavy to make use of his feet and to get the super tough rolls that jacks are not allowed. Next, let's turn to Kishar, the Howling Silence. Kishar is a great scoutcaster and always has an assassination threat ready to go. Field Marshal Swift Hunter will let Kishar and her jacks get into or out of combat to get more advantageous positioning. Ricochet on her 2 guns lets you potentially take out 4 models in a turn. Her feat almost guarantees that whatever she and her jacks are attacking is going to be hit and is going to die. Pair that with Fire Group to extend the range threat of her battle group and Open Fire to get free out of activation attacks, and it's a recipe for murder. Kishar does a lot for her battle group and not much for her units, so you'll probably want to run her in a jack heavy list to take advantage of that. Lastly, we'll look at Sabreth, the Eternal Annihilation. Sabreth is a well-rounded caster ready to take whatever you want to put in the list and run it well. Field Marshal Overtake extends the threat of Sabreth and her battle group. Crippling Grasp is a great debuff spell. Fog of War will help deliver the army, and Perdition gets an extra out-of-activation movement for a battle group model. She also gets to pick 3 spells off the rack, and her feat lets her cast all 6 spells for free. Because of that, she'll be happy with whatever type of list you want to build and can run them all well. Speaking of the spell rack, one of the highlights of Mark IV Warmachine that sets it apart from previous versions is the included spell rack for each of the armies. Each of the casters get to take an additional 2 to 3 spells off of the list, so it's worth a second look at what this does for us. The common theme of the Sea Raiders spell rack is adaptability. Since you get to pick these spells after you know what your opponent is playing, the Sea Raiders can use the rack to answer a lot of questions they may not otherwise be able to. Carnage, everyone gets a boost to melee attacks, great if you're going into a high defense army. Death March allows a unit to get +2 to hit in melee and a free out of activation movement in attack. Hex Blast allows the ability to strip away your opponent's spells. Inviolable Resolve gives an armor buff that stops a model or unit from being bullied on the table. Redline dials a warjack way up, giving a speed and damage buff at the cost of a little damage each turn. Second Sight allows models to see through clouds and to see stealthed models. Silence of Death allows a model or unit to hit harder and to deny tough to your opponent. Soulfire is a nice offensive spell that can help stretch your focus pool. Unnatural Darkness lets you drop a cloud, denying line of sight to your opponent. And lastly, Windstorm reduces the range of all incoming ranged attacks, decreasing the effectiveness of a range build and allowing you to engage on your terms. Now let's dive into what a starting 30-point list might look like using just the models from the starter box. Our starter scoutcaster is Kishar, the Howling Silence, and we're going to tentatively rack Redline and Second Sight, but you'll change those as needed at the start of each game. The battle group will start with the light 7-point Jackal, using the advanced deployment head, Hunter Rifle on the right arm, and the Clawed Fist on the left. We'll finish the battle group with a Heavy Tyrant, rocking the Hunter head, Harpoon right arm, and Ripper left arm. We'll take the Reaver Commander solo because he's good and helps buff the last models in our list, the Assault Reavers. To finish the list off, we're going to take Blessing of the Gods for some magic and blessed weapons when needed, Breakthrough to disengage if needed, Careful Reconnaissance to gain Pathfinder as needed, Old Faithful to keep the jacks going, and Power Swell to extend our focus pool. After learning the ropes, we can move on to a 50-point army that might look like this, still only using the starter box models. Kishar again, We're going to rack Inviolable Resolve and a red line, but remember you can change those at the start of the game. We'll make some small tweaks to the battle group, giving the Jackal the Arc Note head and keeping the Hunter Rifle and Clawed Fist. For the Tyrant, we'll keep the Hunter head and swap the arms to the Belcher and Quad Bolt Thrower. We'll keep the Reaver Commander because he's awesome, and we're going to give our Assault Reavers a Standard Bearer attachment for the buffs he provides. Also, we'll add in the Strike Reavers and a Standard Bearer for them. To finish the models off, we're going to add in the War Witch Coven to help our Jacks go the distance. We're 1 point short, and we'll spend that on the command cards by taking Blessing of the Gods, Careful Reconnaissance, Old Faithful, Power Swell, and spending our last point on Sentry Duty to help out our range game. Now that we've looked at where we're starting, let's turn to where we're going. When you're ready to start expanding, you've got a lot of great options. You could simply start by getting Harus, if he seems like your playstyle. There's also an alternate version that you can get. It's the same model, just looks different if that's your style. If you want to start expanding for real, a second starter box is great because you get a second Heavy Tyrant, second Light Jackal, second units of the Assault Reavers, the Strike Reavers, with Standard Bearers for both, more Ulkor Barragers, another Witch Coven, and Commanders. All of these are units and models that can fit into 75 to 90% of your armies. You can also look at the Sea Raider expansion box to build onto your toolkit by getting a third caster, Sabereth, a unit of Reaver Skirmishers, Ulkor Axers, Rock Harriers are amazing, Therian Vanek is a character solo with good utility, and the Volker Forge Master solo is nice to have along with your Jacks. Well, that's it for our intro to the Warmachine Mark IV Army Orgoth Sea Raiders. Let us know what you want to see next or your hot takes by leaving us those comments below and hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Until next time.